Good morning, everybody. Morning. We are running a bit late, so I'm going to try and keep this as quick and punchy as I can. My name is Andrew Armour. I'm going to be talking to you today. A bit of a contentious title to try and generate a bit of thinking today, and that's the belief that originality and our belief in creativity is actually damaging to innovation. Basically, in terms of who I am and why I'm talking about this, I spent most of my life in the world of happiness. TV, films, music, doing licensing deals, entertainment deals, product development, and then more recently in digital marketing. I'm now a consultant. I run workshops and work with a variety of companies on innovation projects. Okay, this is really the nexus of this talk, if you like, and that there are great myths of innovation, and you'll hear a lot of them today, probably, and you may think that one of my things is a myth of innovation. One of the main things, of course, is that the myth is that we need wacky, creative design and ideas. That it's only radical ideas that succeed. The other myth is that it's all about technology. And this is one of the myth that I've seen throughout my career, is that you need these wacky, lone, wild, zany guys to be creative. In fact, I've got another word for them a little bit later on. The reality of most innovation, when you actually look around it and study the topic, and if I've worked in innovation teams in film companies, TV companies, corporates, it's a lot of simple steps, a lot of hard work and problem solving. You know, the old adage that the transporter in Star Trek wasn't because of great creativity, it's because they couldn't afford to make the model of the spaceship. That's why Captain Kirk beams down. It wasn't a wacky, zany, creative idea, because they didn't have the money to make the model of the spaceship. The second thing, which is really important to my heart, is this thing about connecting. Connecting to industry colleagues, connecting to your competitors, working with suppliers and customers, rather than working internally with your own team. Go and speak to a supplier. I'm amazed when I worked in a large corporate. I worked in one of the biggest marketing teams in the country, with over 180 people in marketing. None of them spoke to suppliers apart from ad agency. None of them spoke to any of our product suppliers. They all wanted to deal with advertising and promotion. So the last one is this thing here, which I'll be talking about in the cafe at 12 o'clock. This idea of working with other people. How do you work with other people to be creative? Okay, 4 main things. Firstly, innovation is more about smart teams and networks than individual creativity. Anyone been to Hong Kong and Shanghai? You see these people doing scaffolding on bamboo poles. They trust each other. Hundreds of feet up, and it's just bamboo that's holding them together. Essentially, working with other people is a smart way to be creative. It's not just me saying this. This comes from my own work, but it's a lot of academic reading behind all this. So I've included a few things here. Linda Grattan talks about it in her book, Hotspots, about what makes dynamic companies. The key thing she talks about is relationship network, boundary spanning, this theory of the adjacent other, which you may have heard of, the adjacent other. Do not stick to your own community. Do not stick, if you're a marketer, don't talk to marketing people. If you're an IT person, don't speak to IT people. Speak to other people. Speak to people who are different from you. This great theory of weak ties. Anyone heard of this? It's a really interesting concept, eh? If you imagine the top circle there is your own internal business department. That's great, you can have networks around the business, but what's more interesting is when you start networking with your weak ties, people who you may just know as associates. This is how the whole social media trend, of course, the whole world of social media takes up, is you connect to other people through other connections. The interesting thing is a lot of the research shows that that's where real creativity sparks. That's where real ideas come from. There's a phrase that creativity sparks in the clash of different ideas, not the same ideas. Don't speak to the same people over and over again. There's a great writer called Nilofer Merchant, not sure anyone's heard of her, it's very good, wrote a great book called The New How. And she talks about this point, there's a great point there at the top there, that the future is not created, the future is co-created. If you look around at all the great works of creativity in music, film, TV, art, most of it is by connecting to other people and using other people's ideas. Working by yourself in a garage or a garret is very romantic. It's also a myth. It's a myth. Most people, I've met so many people over the years that I've got a great idea for TV, but I'm not going to share it with anyone because they might steal the idea. I used to have musicians say, I've got a great dance track, but I don't want to share it with anyone because they might steal it. You never hear from them again. There's a reason, because I don't work with other people, I don't trust other people. Okay, second contentious point. I'll take questions at the end, you can argue this. Originality and creativity is overrated. I've worked in ad agencies, I've worked with TV directors, film directors. The best ones, very irrational, very cool, very focused, okay? It's not about wacky, zany ideas going off on a tangent. You see this in the corporate world over and over again. In the area that I love, which is partnerships and alliances, some of the greatest things that we have that people would hold up as innovations are actually about collaboration. Nike didn't say, I tell you what, let's get into the phone business. Let's be creative and get into the phone business. And Apple weren't creative and said, I tell you what, let's set up a record company. That would be insane. What they do is they focus on their speciality and they make friends with people. The adjacent other. They make friends and partnerships and alliances with other people. That's where creativity and innovation comes from. The myth of the iPod. You know, it's amazing. You look at the history of the iPod. This was the first iPod, invented by a guy called Kane Kramer in 1979. Anyone heard of Kane Kramer? 1979 he came up with this, virtually exactly the same. But he was an isolationist. He kept things to himself, wanted to keep it all to himself. Steve Jobs, he just put the whole, it's like a put it all together. It's all a hodgepodge of things, licenses, different patents. The swipe thing was Pixo, I think. Pixo was the swipe. Apple didn't invent the swipe. It's invented by a company called Pixo. They didn't even invent the music player. The music player was invented by Portal Player. All they did was bung it all together in a shoebox and make it look really nice. And as a marketer, I have to say, they're great marketers. And this is where a lot of people think in innovation, design, technology, don't get it, I think, is that the things that succeed, it's often about the better marketing rather than a better product. So anyone who studied marketing here, it's like marketing 101, Jack Trout and Al Rees. It's not a battle of products, it's a battle of perception, a battle of the minds. In terms of creativity and innovation, which everyone says, well, what's the difference? This is the best definition that I found. Gordon Torr, who is a very interesting man, he was the worldwide creative director of J. Walter Thompson, biggest ad agency in the world. And when I interviewed him, this is what he said. He said, Andrew, he said, creativity is where you get money and you get ideas from it. You get people in a room and say, come up with some idea. Cost you. Get ideas costs. You've got to get designers, writers, engineers, developers. It costs money to get an idea. That's not innovation. You know, when you're in an innovation team, at first it sounds great, it's great fun, but the clock starts ticking. Because sooner or later, someone is going to say, where is the return on the investment? Where is the money? Innovation is getting that idea and turning it into cash. That's the best definition I found. Is it about revolution or evolution? Is there really a difference between a modern Porsche and a 1973 Porsche? Well, of course. Faster, safer, better interior. The design concept, the original thinking, pretty much the same. The Germans are really good at this. They've done it with the Volkswagen and the Mini as well. It's exactly the same. It's the same concept. It's just grown. It's like if you're into Darwin, it's about evolution, modification, change and development. The thing is, don't start with a plain bit of paper. That's where I think, if you look around, I'll talk about the creative industries later. Most of the successes in the creative industries are not original. They're adaptations. Look at films. Sherlock Holmes, one of the biggest TV shows in Britain. It's from the 1870s, 1880s. Girl bands. I like a good girl band, as most boys do. The girl band's been around since the 1960s. It's an adaptation. It's the same creative concept. Now, the tactical delivery has to be right each time. You have to get the right mix of girls and pop music, and you have to promote it, make money, etc. The point is, you could come up with a great new creative concept, an avant-garde jazz trip-hop trio with 3 girls and 2 boys. Best of luck with that. If I'm going to be practical as a business marketer, I'll probably say, let's go after girl bands or boy bands or heavy rock bands or dance bands. There's a model to follow. Okay, innovation is more about smart collaboration than creativity. There's a great book here called Super Teams by Koi Tu. If anyone has a chance to read it, it's a great book. And Coy went and interviewed some of the best creative teams in the world, one of them being the team from Pixar that brought us Toy Story and Nemo and all these other things. What built Pixar is not individual genius. You need smart people, of course you do. You're compressing a lot of data and you're creating stories. But if you actually read the story, what it's really about is how those people work together. That is the key to being successful. This is another great book, Team Geek. This is the guy who heads up engineering at Google. Pretty high-tech stuff. If you read the book, what he points out pretty clearly, he wrote this for new people coming into Google who basically thought they'd made it because they'd passed all the mathematics tests and engineering tests and thought, I'm great. And he said, no, you're not. That's just the way to get in. The way to be great in a company like Google is that. Lose the ego, don't come across like a know-it-all, and work with other people. This is my, when I talked about creative, I love creative people, I've always worked with creative people. But this is a really interesting quote that I heard a couple of years ago which resonated. Talent without discipline is like an octopus on roller skates. There's plenty of movement going on, but you're never sure where it's going forwards, backwards, or sideways. In other words, it's very clever, it's very talented, it can be really, really good fun to be around. But the problem is, it looks a bit like that. If anyone's got a better picture of an octopus on roller skates, please send it to me. And if you worked in, I worked in ad agencies and TV companies, and sometimes you get these amazing creative people, and they're often called mavericks. Oh, they're a bit maverick. Yeah, they're very creative, but they're a bit maverick. Unfortunately, they could be the next genius. They could be the next brilliant Steve Jobs or Richard Branson. The big word there is they could be. Often they're an octopus on roller skates. They're off in all sorts of directions, often bumping into other people, falling over, not working well with other people. But there's a lot of activity. It feels like they're busy. Have you worked in a lot of teams? It feels like there's a lot of activity going on, but it's not actually productive. Okay, last one, and I better hurry up here. The creative industries thrive by not being original all the time, but they use smart IP. I think it was good to see IP was a big part of ICL's innovation thing. That was I first studied law and got into music and TV that way. If you look at the entertainment industry, it's all about smart networks, smart franchising, smart licensing. This is the biggest movies of the year in the States. 13 of the top 20 movies last year were franchise extensions, brand licensing extensions, often from a comic company called Marvel Comics. Okay, so Marvel Comics. In fact, today I saw in the Financial Times, I was reading on the train on this beautiful summer's day, or spring day. In the UK at the moment, the major publishers, HarperCollins and Penguin, are now deciding that they're going to form strategic alliances with games and film companies. Now, someone like me would have said, you should that's an obvious, find the adjacent other, find who else you can work with. It's what's driven, as I say, it's what's driven the film and TV industries. If you look at franchising, which is a fascinating subject, I'm doing a presentation at Henley in a couple of weeks on it. Franchising is really interesting because often what you can do, you can own the format rights and the character rights, and then license that to be made into another creative work, if that makes sense. So Star Trek, the original creative work by Paramount, can be licensed to other film companies to make new versions of Star Trek, cartoons, computer games. But they can make their own stories out of those characters. It's a very interesting area. It's still creative, just not starting with a blank piece of paper. One of the most amazing stories on this is, everyone know the story of these Lego computer games and how the Lego characters became a computer game and then the computer game became a movie? It's not starting with an original idea. It's very innovative. It's very smart, very, very successful. The two arrows at the back, the bottom, the white line, which is barely a blip on there, that's the licensing costs. That's how much it costs to use the characters from the movies. And the big blue line is the revenue that Lego are making out of it. If you go to the West End tonight, you'll see a lot of musicals. Is this all brand new music? No. The Bodyguard I saw when I was, when I was at university or something. It's now a musical. Okay, quickly, what does all this mean? What lessons can be drawn? And this is only a 20-minute session, so I'm trying to keep it as really short as I can. We started off with the myths of innovation. New ideas, technology, and a lone genius. What it's really about is working through problems, working through networks, and working well with other people. That's what really drives a lot of creativity and innovation. First thing then, I would say if you're interested in innovation, if you're running an innovation project, first thing, consider your partners and alliances. That's what I used to do. And my job was always to go out and partner. So find out who is your adjacent other. Who is your adjacent other in your industry or network? Who is the next person, next organisation? Build and reward collaboration. Collaboration is a big topic. Again, I'm doing something at Henley about it in a couple of weeks. But the key thing about collaboration, you have to reward it. You have to reward what are called T-shaped people. People who have a depth of knowledge, but can also work well with people across. It's T-shaped. Thirdly, if you're interested in innovation, if you're running an innovation program, explore IP and licensing. Explore third-party rights. Before you start getting your team to design something, build something, spend money on brainstorms and workshops, first of all, explore third-party IP. Finally, it's great to be creative, but beware of that roller skating octopus. Beware of those lone individuals who, at their best, could be a creative genius, but more often than not, they can be a roller skating octopus. Okay, I haven't got time for the movie. I had a really good movie by Herbie Hancock called Jazz Pianist, but we haven't got time. Come back another day, we'll play Herbie Hancock. He's very good on the piano. Thank you very much for listening.